Hey homies, what's good? It's the Tominator here, and with the 2018 Arnold Classic just around the corner, I figured that now would be a good time to start making some predictions. And this is going to be fun because this year's lineup is freaking stacked. It's so unpredictable because there's literally about 5 or 6 guys who can pull this thing off, so the level of competition is just insane. It's damn near almost like a second Olympia. So one thing's for sure, we're definitely in store for a treat here, and I don't know, maybe some of these guys felt guilty about the pathetically shallow turnout of last year's event, because it seems like this time around, almost everybody decided to sign up. So just as a reminder, here's the official competitor list, and as you can see, there's some pretty big names on hand. You've got the record-holding 5-time Arnold Classic champion, Dexter Jackson. You've got the 3rd place finisher at the 2017 Mr. Olympia in William Bonac. There's the beast Roelly Winklaar, the man with the best and biggest arms in the business. Then there's the formidable Flexitron Sean Roden, and of course we can't forget about the reigning and defending champ Cedric McMillan. Plus, as a sweet bonus, we have the long-awaited return of Dennis Wolf, who hasn't competed since 2015. So yeah, trying to pick a favorite out of this group is no easy task. It's definitely one hell of a lineup, and I can't wait to watch this thing go down in a couple weeks. So the way I see it, these names you see outlined here will be your top 5 at this year's Arnold Classic. I'm pretty confident in that, but it's the order that's the tricky part. That I'm not so sure about. Now, you may notice the obvious omission of Dennis Wolf, but we'll come back to that in a bit. First up, let me just say that any one of these guys could pull off a win here. Like always, it's all going to come down to who shows up in shape versus who comes in off. So it's basically impossible to pick a winner at this point. It's just pure guesswork because nobody knows what they'll look like come contest day. But if you put a gun to my head and force me to pick somebody, I've got to go with William Bonac, man. This is arguably the most complete bodybuilder of the lot. He's got tremendous separation and roundness to those muscle bellies, very similar to Phil Heath in that respect, and he has all sorts of detail in that back and in those quads. So if he comes in condition like how he did at the Olympia, I'm not sure anybody can really stop him. I mean, he beat every single one of these guys at the Mr. O, so in that sense, he is the de facto frontrunner for this show. Even if he doesn't quite nail it, or if somebody else manages to outshine him, I would be surprised to not see Bonac wind up at least in the top 2. However, you can never count out the Blade. Every time we go to overlook him or assume that age is finally going to catch up to the guy, he continues to defy common sense and prove all the doubters wrong. And it's a fact that nobody in history has had more success at the Arnold than Dexter, so you could say that this is his territory right here, that he has the home field advantage, so to speak. So if Bonac comes in even a little off, then I can definitely see Dexter sealing the deal because Dex is pretty much never off. The worst he ever shows up at is like 90%, so it's safe to say that he is the most consistent bodybuilder of all time at this point. The only reason I give Bonac a slight edge is because he's placed ahead of Dexter at the Olympia and has the greater momentum of the two right now. He's also got to be hungrier as more of an up-and-comer with something to prove, as opposed to the Blade, who, did I mention, is the most winningest pro bodybuilder of all time. Dexter's already been there, done that. I mean, he's won everything there is to win. So at age 48, I'm just not sure he's going to have that drive, that internal fire and motivation to really push himself past all this steep opposition. However, that said, I don't foresee a scenario where Dexter finishes any lower than 3rd. He's just too much of a seasoned veteran for that. Now, Roelly Winklaar is interesting because here's a guy who can fuck up everyone's day if he comes in diced. He's an absolute behemoth, and he can and will outmuscle literally everybody on that stage, so if he can come in dry and peeled as well, watch out, people. Plus, let's not forget that he already knocked off both Bonac and Dexter at the 2017 Prague Pro, like what, a week after the Olympia? So technically you might say that Roelly is the favorite to win and the man with the most momentum coming into this contest. But still, I personally hesitate to bank on him simply because, unlike Dexter Jackson and William Bonac, Roelly hasn't quite proven himself yet to be able to come in consistently conditioned. He's definitely gotten much better at that in the last 2 or 3 years, but at his size, it's just a very thin line to walk. It's a lot harder for a mass monster of his stature to come in really ripped, because in order to maintain the monstrous mass and fullness that he brings, he's at more risk of holding water and spilling over in the stomach area. But anyway, I expect one of these 3 will be crowned the 2018 Arnold Classic champion. I just feel like these guys are the ones to beat. They're the ones with the most momentum right now, and that added confidence from their recent successes should be a big boost to their stage presence and presentation, especially in Roelly Winklaar's case. That said, we certainly cannot discount the likes of Sean Roden and Cedric McMillan. If either one of these guys really knocks it out of the park, they could definitely pull off a victory here. I just don't give them as solid of a chance based on recent history. Now, Roden is a perennial top 3 at the Mr. Olympia. He was 3rd in 2014, 3rd again in 2015, and 2nd in 2016. So aside from Phil, he can beat just about anybody on the planet. This past year, though, he definitely fell off a little bit, and his midsection was so distended it cost him big time, and he dropped down to 5th. And this is especially concerning for Roden because that small, tight midsection used to be one of his greatest virtues. But for the past couple of years, it seems he's been struggling with it, and last year he just totally mistimed his prep and came in with a bona fide bubble gut. So if he can rein that back in and make a return to form, this guy is a definite contender and a huge threat for the title. But while he absolutely can win this thing if he really comes in on, I just don't think it's super likely. Bottom line is, I don't see him beating Bonac and Dexter and Roelly. Maybe he can take out 1 or 2, but not all 3. And of course, we got to talk about Cedric, the reigning Arnold Classic champ. Now, it's an unusual situation we have here where the current champion is something of an underdog in many people's eyes, including my own. And while I think Cedric should easily crack top 5 and could even wind up as high as 2nd or 3rd, I don't expect him to repeat this year, and the reason is because the competition is just so much greater. Last year, he only really had to go through a young and inexperienced Dallas McCarver, may he rest in peace. But this time, he's got to go up against a bunch of guys who routinely kick his ass at the Olympia, like Dexter and Roden. Even Roelly's placed ahead of him these past couple of years. So unless Cedric comes in some of the very best shape of his life, he's a long shot to win this thing in my opinion. Even if he does nail his conditioning, the stars would pretty much have to align for him in the sense that some of these other guys would have to kind of miss the mark in order for him to beat them. The good news for Cedric is that he does tend to bring his best to the Arnold. For whatever reason, he always seems to show up in much sharper shape here than compared to the Olympia, so hopefully that trend holds true and he can give some of these top guys a real run for their money. And I know some people might be thinking that Cedric will hold an advantage as the defending champ, or if nothing else, that he should have the edge because he's got Arnold in his corner kind of backing him up, because Arnold obviously has made it clear that he supports Cedric and prefers his more aesthetic look and posing style, but I honestly don't think that this will hold much sway with the judges. Cedric won in 2017 simply because he was the best conditioned and most complete athlete in the show. He also happened to be the highest ranked bodybuilder going into it, so it really was his contest to lose. But the truth is, for him to prevail again against all these higher ranked people like Bonac and Dexter and Roden would be a major upset. And I'll tell you what, if he shows up looking the same as last year, he doesn't have a shot in hell. That physique was too soft and it won't be good enough in this lineup. So he's got to do his homework and really bring his A game here. Lastly, we got to mention Dennis Wolf. I know there's a lot of fans out there excited to see him step foot on stage again and hope to see him kick some butt. But I would temper that enthusiasm somewhat and caution you guys that this will not be a vintage Dennis Wolf, okay? This won't be the same guy who won this very contest just 4 years ago, or even the version that took 4th at the 2015 Mr. Olympia. I mean, he is coming back after a severe injury. The dude had spinal surgery. Chips of bone from his friggin' spine were flaking off, alright? So that is some serious rehabilitation we're talking about. So suffice it to say, Buddy lost almost all his gains. And yeah, he's been making good progress, and muscle memory is a wonderful thing, and he'll bounce back eventually, but not this fast. Remember what happened to Victor Martinez a couple years ago when he had to do time in jail and lost pretty much all of his gains? It took him a while to rebuild all that mass, and I'm not sure if he ever really got back to where he was. And in any case, you can't get it back overnight. So yeah, expect to see a smaller version of the Big Bad Wolf than we're used to. And he may even be a little rusty as well after such a long layoff, so you got to question whether he can come in with his usual tight conditioning. So for this reason, I don't see him in the top 5 at all. I honestly think he and his fans should consider it fortunate if he manages to secure that number 6 spot, considering this lineup is very deep and features some other major players in the form of Max Charles, Steve Kuklo, and Lionel Bayecki. Bayecki in particular is a guy I always root for because I love his aesthetics. He's got near-perfect proportions, structure, and muscle insertions, but has yet to live up to all his genetic potential. And in the past year, he really disappointed me. He had a huge opportunity in the 2017 Arnold in that depleted lineup, but he blew it and placed 4th. And then at the Olympia, he repeated his mistake. He was so off that Sean Ray referred to his skin as elephant skin because that's how thick and smooth it looked. So yeah, it's sad to say, but I've kind of lost faith in the guy, and until he can prove to me that he can get it together again, I'm kind of writing him off for now. But if by some minor miracle he does manage to come in dry and well-defined, then of course he would be a major threat to the top 5 and could squeak his way in there. Anyway, back to Wolf. So I'm not writing him off completely or suggesting that it's impossible for him to make a comeback and get back to where he was as, a top 3 bodybuilder in the world. All I'm saying is that at this point in time, it's just not realistic to expect that. So I don't think he's going to seriously challenge for this title. If that's what you're thinking, guys, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So there you have it. That's my predictions for the upcoming 2018 Arnold Classic. I think that the top 3 guys will probably be some combination of William Bonac, Dexter Jackson, and Roelly Winklaar, with Sean Roden and Cedric McMillan likely battling it out for 4th. And then best case scenario for Dennis Wolf is no higher than 6th, given his very recent recovery. Of course, anything can happen come contest day, and keep in mind this is all just speculation at this point. I'm just having a little fun placing my bets here, so, trying to figure out what we may see in 2 weeks' time. So hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coverage and analysis of the 2018 Arnold Classic. Until next time, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.